Hey everyone, welcome to the Penguin Atlas of Medieval History. These images come from a book of maps created by someone named Colin McEvedy, who was a map maker, and he wanted to show what the world looked like 1,000 years ago, using modern maps. But instead of writing the names of countries, modern countries down, he wrote the names of empires from a long time ago. Let's take a look at a few of these maps. This is one of the maps from page 37 of the book, which is not in front of me here, but the image is here. This is the year 650. Now, before looking at the map, we should note that in the year 476, in the mid 400s, this entire Mediterranean Sea region was under the control of the city of Rome. This was all the Roman Empire. So southern France, a lot of Spain, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Syria, Turkey, Greece, Croatia here, and then and then Italy, and then southern France. This was all the Roman Empire. The capital was Rome, and the city of Tunis today. There was a city there previously called Carthage, and then that was another important city in the Roman Empire. There was Alexandria in Egypt. But the other major city besides Rome for administrative purposes, outside of Carthage, was Constantinople in the eastern side of the Roman Empire. So Rome and Constantinople were the two cities where you had the most powerful administrative figures in the empire. There was actually a Western emperor and an Eastern emperor. And the reason the eastern part was important for Rome was because back in the 300s and 400s, the Romans were dealing with wars with the Persian Empire based in Iran and also part of Iraq. This was the Sasanian, Sassanian, the Sasanian Empire. So there was these Roman-Persian wars, and the Middle East was kind of in the middle of it. And in the 400s. And the other reason the eastern part of the empire was important to Rome was because there were these Germanic language, people who spoke languages related to Germanic language peoples who were invading. The most famous originally in the 300s were the Vandals, who took over Roman Tunisia and Carthage. And that was in the 300s. So hundreds of years later, in the 600s, Arabic speakers began to call this region, especially southern Spain and central Spain, they began to call it the land of the Vandals. The lands once controlled by the Vandals, Vandalus, or in Arabic, Andalus. So that's in the 400s. This is all the Roman Empire based in Rome and based in Constantinople before this map. When you get to the 500s, when you get to 476, Rome is conquered by some of these Germanic language peoples who included the Visigoths, and they're still here on this map way later in the 600s. There were the Ostrogoths, not on this map, and Rome, the last Roman emperor in 476 was named Romulus, and there was no Roman emperor after that. In the 500, so this entire region now in the late 400s is split into Germanic language kingdoms that control France, Spain, Tunisia, Italy, and this eastern half in the late 400s and the 500s survives, based in Constantinople, and it controls Greece, Turkey, the Middle East, Syria, Egypt in the 500s. They are still dealing with the Persian Empire based in Iran and Iraq, the Sasanians. And the Eastern Empire is known as the Eastern Roman Empire. It's also called the Byzantine Empire. And in the 500s, this is where in the 500s you have the lead up to this current map. In the 500s, a particular ruler named Justinian, who ruled in Constantinople, decides that he wants to try to conquer Italy and Tunisia and try to create a new Roman Empire based in Constantinople. And that's Justinian here on the left. He's represented in a mosaic, kind of a painting looking thing made up of tiles in a church in Italy. and so he does that in the 500s, semi-successful, and that's why when you get here into this map in the 600s, that's why Constantinople, what is now Istanbul, capital of the surviving Eastern Roman Empire, also called the Byzantine Empire. That's why they managed to take control of Italy and Tunisia, and pushing out these previous Germanic language rulers and kingdoms. But by the 600s, the Eastern Romans have lost Eastern Roman Syria, Eastern Roman Egypt, because the Islamic empires in the 600s have taken over the Middle East, Egypt, and North Africa. So when you get to 650 on this map, you'll see here the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, the capital, also known as the Byzantine Empire, is controlling Turkey and Greece, Italy and Tunisia, but they're still having trouble. They're still having these battles with the Germanic kingdoms of their time in the 650s. The most important ones are the Frankish people, the Frankish kingdom, known as Francia. So this is where you get France. It's France and part of Western Germany. And there's the Visigothic kingdom. And you don't see the Vandals on the map here because the Vandals are not very powerful or relevant anymore. The Frankish people, they spoke a German-related language known as Frankish, which is an old form of Dutch. So in the Netherlands and in Belgium, they still speak Dutch. In Belgium, they speak French and Flemish, which Flemish is a form of Dutch. And in the Netherlands, they speak Dutch. The Visigoths spoke the Visigothic language, which no longer exists. But the rulers began to speak the language of the wider population, and the wider population spoke the vernacular or spoken form of Latin, which in the Frankish kingdom was French, and in the Visigothic kingdom was different forms of Spanish. There were different dialects of French, different dialects of Spanish. That's why today you still have Catalan, Castellano, Castilian, which is modern Spanish. There's Portuguese, which is closely related to Spanish, Galician, similar to Portuguese. And this is 650. So you have some Germanic kingdoms still powerful here. And the Frankish kingdom is basically a kind of long-term resident here, and it becomes France. So you have the Byzantine Empire based in Constantinople, you have the Frankish kingdom, you have the Visigothic kingdom, and then of course you have the Islamic empires. And the first major Islamic empire is based in Medina, and the rulers there are the people, the Khalifa, the caliphs, who include Abu Bakr, then the Khalifa Omar, and then the Khalifa Uthman, and then the Khalifa Ali. Now there's a fifth ruler there who does not pledge allegiance or loyalty to the fourth caliph. And the fifth caliph is Muawiyah in the 600s. And he's the governor of Syria. And he basically declares that Damascus will be the new center of the early Islamic empire. And this is where you get, in the next map, this is where you get the Khilafah empire, caliphate, founded by Muawiyah, the Syrian governor, which is the Banu Umayyah. And he comes from the Banu Umayyah clan within the Quraysh tribe of the Western Arabian Hijaz region. There were some Arab tribal politics there because the third caliph was named, who was Uthman, came from the Banu Umayyah. The fourth caliph Ali came from the Banu Hashim clan within the Quraysh. And there are some complicated politics there at the time, but there was a kind of clan rivalry dimension to Muawiyah not pledging allegiance to the fourth caliph and then declaring Damascus as the kind of new center of the expanding Islamic empire. And this is where you get the Banu Umayyah Caliphate, al-Khilafah al-Umayyah. That's the one associated with a lot of the absorption in the late 600s and 700s, the absorption of a lot of Eastern Roman administrative culture and even visual culture, where the new mosques begin to look like Roman architecture. And because of the expansion of the Islamic caliphates, this is where, even in the previous map, in the 650s, this is where, going back to even the Medina Caliphate, the Eastern Romans in Constantinople, they lose control over Eastern Roman Syria, Eastern Roman Egypt, because this whole region is now under Islamic rule. So you can see here that the Eastern Roman Empire is being squeezed on either side, on the west side or northern side by these Germanic kingdoms, and in the southern and eastern side by the Arabic-speaking Islamic Empire. When you go to the next map here, the one we were just looking at, the 700s, they're basically controlling Turkey and Greece, a little bit of Sicily here. And the Eastern Romans basically stayed there in Constantinople from the 700s all the way into the 1400s. By the 1400s, the Eastern Romans in the 1400s are being squeezed not by the Germanic kingdoms and the Arabic-speaking Islamic Caliphate. By the 1400s, Constantinople is being squeezed by the Venetian Republic. So these were the Italian cities who began to declare independence from the Frankish kingdom, and also declaring independence from the Eastern Romans, who at some point were taking control of part of Italy. The Venetian Republic is very powerful in the 1400s, and they're taking over parts of Greece, Eastern Roman Greece, and the Ottoman Empire, Turkish-speaking Muslims, many of whom are coming from this northeast part of modern Turkey, southern Russia, Central Asia, Uzbekistan. They are taking over the Eastern Roman Empire in the 1400s. And in 1453, they take over, the Ottoman Empire takes over Constantinople, and Constantinople begins to look like what Istanbul looks like today from the 1400s onward. But back in the 700s, you can see here the Banu Umayyah Caliphate, and they have now stretched all the way into Visigothic Spain, so one of the Germanic kingdoms. And Visigothic Spain comes to be known as Al-Andalus, because the Arabic speakers remembered the legacy of the Vandals, who were here at some point in the 300s invading Roman Tunisia, Vandalus in Latin, Andalus in Arabic. The Banu Umayyah. You can see here that these Russian regions are made up of different kingdoms and tribes and whatnot. Interestingly, one of these regions actually does become Muslim. This is the northeast Turkey. There's this Volga River, and there are people here who speak a Turkish type language related to the Turkish language. This is in the 700s. The Volga Bulgar people, they speak a Turkish type language related to the Turkish that the Ottomans speak and that modern Turks speak. You still have Turkish speaking Bulgars here in Russia today. They're known also as Tatars today. And there are famous people from that ethnic group. I mentioned in class that Marat and Dinara Safin, Russian tennis players, they actually come from the ethnic Bulgar or Tatar background. So in the map here in 700s, these are the Bulgars, and they become Muslim. And these German regions there, these are places that are starting to kind of develop more modern political systems, and so they modeled partly after the Frankish kingdom, and so they're not very powerful yet on the map. Let's go to this third map here. Let's go to the 771. Here you'll see now by the late 700s, the Banu Umayyah Khilafah based in Damascus has been replaced by a new empire based in Baghdad. So you can see here that there's some turmoil in the Islamic empires. The Al-Khilafah al-Abbasiyah, they more or less revolted. These group of people revolted against Damascus and established the Abbasiyah Caliphate. And they in this late 700s they build the city of Baghdad in Iraq. Syria is just east and south of Turkey, and then you have Iraq, and it controlled the same lands. North Africa, and then Spain. Over in Spain, though, you have rulers who identify themselves as Banu Umayya emirs. They say that they are survivors or people who escaped this revolution that took control of Banu Umayya, Umayyi Damascus, and they say that they went to Spain and they declared themselves ruler of Spain, but they did not want to have trouble with the caliphs in Baghdad, and so they called themselves emirs, kind of like military governors, and they pledged allegiance to the rulers in Baghdad. By the 900s, they actually declare themselves a separate caliphate, khilafa. And you'll see here that in the north of, so this is kind of what the region came to be known as Al-Andalus, and the kingdoms up here in the north. This is the beginning of the 700s from an early period when some of these northern kingdoms begin to now attempt to take over Islam, what we know now as what we call Islamic Spain. The Frankish people are still here. Here are the Saxons, some another Germanic people, and so the German countries, you can begin to see them. The Duchy of Bavaria, you're beginning to see the beginnings of modern German countries. Here are the Volga Bulgars, and Norway, Sweden, Denmark. This is where the Vikings come from in the 900s. These region here, the Irish, the Scots, later on the English, the Welsh from Wales. Eventually, you begin to see the formation of the Kingdom of England, which unites with the Kingdom of Scotland and the Kingdom of Ireland in Wales. And you begin to see here the United Kingdom of England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. So interesting. Many of the military governors in the Abbasid Caliphate, who were called sultans, who were different from the military governors here, who were called emirs. Sultans ruled closer to Egypt and Iraq. Sultans were these professional military figures who culturally came from these Turkish regions of what is now Uzbekistan, southern Russia. They were known to be able to ride horses very at a high speed and shoot bow and arrow with precision while riding at high speed. And they were hired by the Abbasid Caliphate as military people, and then they were assigned provinces to rule as sultans. This is where you get some of these names in mosques associated. So famous mosques in Egypt, like the Ibn Tulun Mosque. Some of these names are Turkish names, and they are associated with some of these sultans. If you see Ibn Tulun here, Ibn Tulun Ta. Ibn Tulun was an Abbasid governor of Egypt, and so he was. There have these dynasties of Turkic rulers, and they would put money into creating these mosques. Some people think that the spiral minaret in the Ibn Tulun Mosque in Cairo is based off of the spiral minaret where many of these Turkish soldiers used to live in Iraq, in Samarra, near Baghdad. There's a spiral minaret there in the Mosque of Samarra, and that's the Mosque of Samarra. It's a giant mosque that was used by these Turkish soldiers under the Abbasids. So that's the story of this map. Let's take a look at one other map here. If we jump all the way forward here to the 1000s, you'll see how different this is starting to look. The Abbasid Caliphate is still there, but the military governors there are known as the Buwayhid people, the Buwayhids, and Buwayhids. Let's look them up. Now the Buwayhids or the Buwayhids. It's Al Buya or Al Buwayhiya. This was just one of the different types of military people that would work under the Abbasid Empire's rule. So the map could write Abbasid Caliphate here. It's just mentioning that the Buwayhiya emirs were the military governors here. But you can see here that a separate caliphate has emerged, the Al-Khilaf al-Fatimiyya, based in Cairo, and they built Cairo in the 900s, and Medina al-Qahira. So Baghdad and Al-Qahira become two of the main imperial cities of the Islamic world. And also by the 900s, 1000s, the emirs of the Banu Umayya emirs of Spain, previously loyal to Baghdad, they declare themselves a separate khilafah, as kind of a new Umayyad caliphate. And but they are dealing with a lot of conquests from local regions. And this is where you begin to see the rise of these Amazigh language ruling circles. And you'll see here the Zirid Emirates. These are, if you look up the Zirids here, these are, this is your Zirids. You'll see at some point in the 900s, they control a lot of North Africa. These are actually people of North African Amazigh language background. Zidiyun, or Benu Zidi, and they generally speak, here in the 900s, they generally speak both Arabic and Amazigh languages. This is why by the 10, 1100s, you see that these bilingual Arabic-speaking Amazigh language people, they eventually build this bilingual people. They develop the Muwahidun, Murabitun and Muwahidun Caliphate. And you can see this here in the 1200s, the Muwahidun Caliphate. At this point, so the Muwahidun Caliphate, and you'll see here that a lot of Al-Andalus is taken over by different kingdoms, Portugal, Castile, which is the one that has the Castilian language that is used today, Spanish. Aragon speaks a language similar to Catalan. Here's France. And here, the Germans have now developed a German empire of their own. France is now using French, similar to like a spoken Latin. The Germans are using their own German language. And you begin to see here different little kingdoms connected to modern Russia. In the 1200s, this is before the Eastern Roman Empire lost its control to the Ottoman Empire. But before the Ottomans, though, there actually were other Turkish kingdoms, like the Seljuk, or in Turkish Seljuk, sultans of Iconium. Iconium is now Konya. And you'll see here the Empire of Nicaea. That's kind of one of the little pieces that is left of the Eastern Roman Empire. Constantinople is under this thing here called the Latin Empire. This was actually that story I mentioned where Constantinople by the 1400s is being squeezed between the Venetian Republic and the Ottoman Turks. Well, here in the 1200s, you're already seeing some of this because the Venetians and Genoese, some of these Italians, they have actually already taken over Constantinople temporarily. And this is actually a kind of surviving crusader state, Salibiyun. The Italians and French in the 1000s onwards, they're establishing different kingdoms here. And by the 1200s, those crusader kingdoms, some of them are still there. The kingdom of Acre, Akka, the kingdom of Cyprus, Armenia, and the Latin kingdom, or the Latin Empire. This was why the Eastern Roman Empire in the 1400s, when they are able to take over Constantinople again from these crusaders, you can see Venice here. The Venetian Republic is taking over a lot of Greece. This is why they were trying to decide, do they want to be under Italian/Venetian rule, or do they want to be under Ottoman Turkish rule? That's where the Greek Orthodox Church, or the Eastern Orthodox Church, began to argue that maybe Ottoman rule in the 1400s is preferable to Italian or Venetian rule, because the Ottomans and the Turkish predecessors had already demonstrated that they were giving the Eastern Orthodox, the Greek Orthodox Church, more independence than what the Roman Catholic Italians would give. because the Roman Catholics wanted the Greek Orthodox Church to become Catholic, while the Muslims were not interested in whether the Greek Orthodox become Catholic or not. So you can see a lot of hectic changes here in the 1200s, and the Vikings of the 900s, they're now forming themselves into kingdoms of Sweden, Denmark, Norway. And here the Kingdom of England is in the process of uniting with the Kingdom of Scotland and with the Irish. So, and here's the Muwahidun. At some point, Salah ad-Din, come back to Salah ad-Din, but at some point, the Al-Khilaf al-Fatimiyya falls to various successors, but one of the successors is the sultans connected with Salah ad-Din. And Salah ad-Din, we'll come back to Salah ad-Din, but in any case, Salah ad-Din is one of these rulers. Let's just put the year here. Let's look up the exact years of the life of Salah ad-Din, known in Europe as Saladin. 1137 to 1193. So 1137 to 1193, Salah ad-Din in the 1100s establishes the Ayyubi Sultan leadership. Eventually, by the 1200s, this becomes the Mamluk Sultanate. These are known as the Mamalik, the Mamluk Sultans of Egypt in the 1200s. By the 1500s, the Mamluk Sultans of Egypt, who also control a lot of Syria, they actually are conquered by the Ottomans. That's how in the 1500s, that's when the 1500s, the Ottoman Empire controls Constantinople, becomes Istanbul. They control former Eastern Roman Greece, Turkey, and then Syria. They take over from the Mamluks and they take over Egypt. This is where you get this giant Ottoman Empire. By the 1500s, the Muwahidun are the various successors like the Marinids, the Al-Mariniyun. So interesting. They're there. All right, so very interesting. You can look at the successors. There are various successors. You're beginning to see the beginning of modern Morocco when you look at the various successors. It's kind of interesting. All right, so that is the map situation.